Good evening, everyone. My name is Spencer Chaw, and I am a third-year bioengineering major and pre-med student here at Stanford. I am joined by senior pre-med chemistry major and violinist Audrey Kim, as well as Stanford cello faculty Christopher Costanza, who also serves as the associate director for music in the Stanford Medical Humanities and Arts program. We are incredibly excited to perform for you tonight, and in honor of the theme AI in Bloom, we've put together a performance in 2 movements. The first movement is an arrangement I created of the popular tune Pure Imagination from the 1971 film Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, fit to our ensemble of violin, cello, and piano. Now, in the spirit of tonight's event, I then prompted AI music tools with this arrangement, as well as words like blooming, imaginative, and life, to generate new musical themes and ideas. I then wove these into a new original composition, which I've named In Bloom, a testament to the power of human interpretation on artificial creation. These musical movements will be accompanied by a backdrop of images and videos illustrating blooming flowers. This backdrop was generated by new text-to-video AI platforms using carefully constructed prompts to simulate both realistic and artistic scenes. We hope you enjoy our performance created with the assistance of AI technology.
Well, good evening, everyone. Wasn't it amazing? It's really impressive what AI can do, but it's the people that make it all happen, right? And that's going to be a theme for tonight. Let's have another round of applause for those very talented musicians. Now, each year we gather here for Frontiers in Medicine to hear about the latest in biomedical discoveries and how those discoveries are impacting the lives of patients in our healthcare systems and also through the work that's published and that drives advances in healthcare around the world. This year, we're focused on AI. That makes sense, doesn't it? I mean, how can you not focus on AI in the midst of the way our society, our world, our lives are being transformed by AI? This is not new at Stanford, right? Stanford's focus on AI dates all the way back to the 1960s. In fact, the pioneering work and even the phrase artificial intelligence was really coined by faculty members here in the engineering school at Stanford. And Stanford's been a leader throughout the revolution. But what's happened in the past 5 years, maybe a little bit longer, is that technology, the compute technology, has now advanced to the point that the dreams of computer scientists to develop models trained based upon almost unfathomable amounts of data, those dreams are now realities. And just as the concept of artificial intelligence was developed here, has been advanced here, so too is the application of AI and the development of algorithms and their impact based upon this new compute. So too is that being driven by folks here at Stanford. And we in Stanford Medicine want to make sure that we leverage the incredible talents that we have in the university, the fact that we are an academic medical center on the campus of and so integrally a part of this amazing research university, and the fact that we're also practicing medicine, doing research, and training the next generation of leaders in the midst of and as an integral part of the ecosystem in technology and information sciences that exists in Silicon Valley. Yes, AI is in bloom, and we want to share some of that bloom with you here tonight through the presentations that you'll hear. Now, in the summer of 2023, just as we were all starting to learn about generative AI, large language models, and there was ChatGPT before GPT-4, before Claude, before the many other large language models that are available today, in the summer of 2023, Fei-Fei Li, professor of computer science and one of the true founders of generative AI as applied to image analysis, and also a co-director of the Human-Centered AI Institute, Fei-Fei and I had some discussions about, well, how do we make sure that those of us on the medical side, the biomedical side, are doing the most we can to take advantage of and leverage the collaborations we already have with engineering and computer science and take those to even the next level. So we started an initiative that goes by the acronym RAISE Health, Responsible AI for Safe and Equitable Health. RAISE Health is not an institute, it's not a building, it's not a center, it's a convener. It's a convener of talent, it's a convener of ideas here at Stanford, and we hope around the world. And it has several goals. The first is to make sure, just as one of the goals of the Human-Centered AI Institute is to make sure that AI is used for the benefit of humanity, we want to make sure that AI in our healthcare delivery systems, in biomedical discovery, is used in a responsible, equitable, trustworthy way. And we want to make sure that AI doesn't perseverate biases, but rather it identifies biases and then enables us to overcome those biases in the way the models are trained and the way the AI is deployed. And we want RAISE Health as its role as a convener to bring together scientists, engineers from around the world, but very importantly, the public, because it's going to be the trust that we have to build and sustain that will determine whether or not AI is a force for making healthcare and biomedicine more equitable, more inclusive, and more impactful, or whether or not AI is viewed with skepticism and derision. And Raise Health is off to a great start with a lot of faculty interest, with a seed grant program with our first conference that we hosted back in May, accompanied by that same week we had the Raise Health conference, with conferences also here at Stanford focused on the applications of AI in healthcare delivery and the Consortium on Health AI, of which we're one of the founding members. And it couldn't be more exciting in terms of where it is today, but even more importantly, where it will be, can be, and will be in the future. Now, in addition to applying AI to discovery, to translation, to the way we deliver healthcare, we also want to look at how AI is used in education. You know, the education of physicians is still principally knowledge-based. It's essentially like learning a language, or maybe it's multiple languages. And then once you learn and can communicate in that language, in those languages, being able to apply those communication skills and that knowledge to understanding the disorders, the complaints that patients come to us with, and working with others and the patient to design the very best treatments. But with knowledge at our fingertips now through generative AI, and with the ability of generative AI to assimilate information in ways that generates oftentimes new knowledge, how do we need to rethink the way we educate physicians? And with generative AI impacting the way we study biological systems, the way we understand protein structure, and increasingly the way we understand the structure and function of nucleic acids, how will we train the next generation of biomedical scientists? And there we really want to focus on the training of what we call dual lingual, or maybe it's multilingual, scientists, physicians, and AI experts. That is, students and others who, in addition to knowing medicine, knowing biology, whether or not they're focused on discovery or they're focused on the delivery of care, that they also are conversant with not only the applications of AI, but also the frontiers and the ways of advancing the technology and the capabilities of AI. And Stanford is uniquely qualified to offer these educational programs for this next generation of biomedical and AI leaders. Now tonight we're going to showcase some of our faculty that are doing research and activities in many, many areas related to these topics that I've just spoken about. But before we launch into the program, it's our hope that tonight we'll be able to share with you some of our enthusiasm and the reasons for our enthusiasm that we can and we will responsibly employ AI in the way healthcare is delivered, the way research is done, and that the result will be an improvement across the board in terms of access, in terms of efficiency, and most importantly, in terms of equity. And I want to take this opportunity now to acknowledge some wonderful leaders who are here tonight and who every day collaborate with me and so many others to make this academic medical center run the way it does and make sure that we're having the impact we know we can have here locally and in the world. Paul King, the President and CEO of Stanford Medicine Children's Health, is here tonight. Rick Shumway, the President and CEO of Stanford Healthcare Tri-Valley. And David Entwistle, the President and CEO of Stanford Healthcare, and you're going to hear from David a little bit later this evening. Finally, before turning the program over to our faculty, you know, an event like this doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen by accident. It requires hundreds and hundreds of hours of dedicated professionals who work to organize the event, ensure that the speakers are well prepared, and everything else that's associated with the evening. Let's have a round of applause and appreciation for the amazing team in medical center development. And now enjoy the evening. I hope you come out of this evening as excited about the potential of AI as all of us are. Thank you.
everyone, and welcome to a discussion on the potential of AI technologies for healthcare. Before we dive in, allow me to introduce myself, although that phrase may take on a surreal meaning today. I'm not the real speaker, nor did the real speaker write this introduction. The voice you're hearing, the image you're seeing on the screen, and even these introductory words were all generated by AI systems. We are actively amidst the arrival of a set of disruptive technologies that are changing the way all of us do our work and live our lives. These profound capabilities and potential applications could reshape healthcare, offering both new opportunities and ethical challenges. To make sure we're still anchored in reality, however, let's welcome the real-life version of our speaker. Take it away, Dr. Jonathan Chen, before they start thinking, I'm the one who went to medical school.
Wow. Thank you for that kind introduction. I don't know. Dean Minor, do we actually have to be here tonight? I'm pretty sure AI could just give our presentation for us at this point. I certainly hope and wish emerging AI systems will answer the overwhelming flood of emails and in-basket messages I have to respond to, and open up new paradigms of care so we can actually reach all of the patients who need us. In the US alone, tens of millions, let alone the billions of people worldwide, have deficient access to the most important scarce healthcare resource, which is access to a medical expert, someone who knows what they're doing. Make this concrete, I'm going to tell one very simple story. I saw a young woman in my clinic years ago, and she said she had worsening fatigue. Her heart was racing. I did some initial tests and found, oh, you have a thyroid hormone imbalance. No problem, miss. I'm going to refer you to our endocrinologist, our hormone specialist. They're going to take good care of you, get you diagnosed and treated properly. She calls a specialty clinic. Next available appointment will be 3 months from now. That's crazy. My patient can't just wait 3 months for care at this point. So in real life, what did I actually do? What I actually did is I pulled up my textbook. I went to an online reference. I hacked together the treatment and management plan, while I also called my old classmate who was an endocrinologist to double check I wasn't doing anything stupid. Through sweat and tears and many uncompensated late hours at night, we did what was necessary just to make it work, because that's what was needed. Does it actually have to be like this? Technically, as a licensed physician, I could order every medication, every test, every procedure a patient could need, but what I can't do is keep track of the tens of thousands of options that advances in medical sciences make available to us. We are clearly well past the point where the complexity of modern medicine exceeds the capacity of the unaided expert mind. In building towards a future vision, what if we had multiple tiers, layers of consultation support? Sometimes you do need to see a classic in-person doctor's visit. If you need a surgeon, look, I don't care how much AI or decision support you give me, I am not doing your colonoscopy for you, okay? But we found electronic consultations can do a lot. Essentially, a primary care doctor could email a specialist, get an answer back in days rather than months to start getting your care underway. Couldn't we start to build towards even more fully automated digital consultation guides? Can we look at all of our medical record data, discover and distribute the latent knowledge embedded in that data so that we can empower individuals with the collective experience of the many? Why is it when you're on Amazon or YouTube, it seems to know what you want before you even completed your thought? It's actually just looking at all the prior data. The next time I ask for a consult, refer a patient, should the computer be able to anticipate, well, this is probably what that specialist is going to do, given the thousands of times we've seen it. It's all very possible nowadays. Even with what you can do with a recommender system, here's a broader thought. I want you to think about not just where we are, but where we are going. This is a chart showing over time, over several years, how well different language model systems have done on accuracy of answering medical exam type questions. We all became aware, right? Disruptive technology emerged less than 2 years ago. The first version of ChatGPT, holy smokes, GPT 3.5, 60%, out of the box. It could kind of barely pass a medical exam. I had some of my colleagues lament, well, if you want a doctor who barely passed medical school, you feel free and talk to this chatbot. This thing's not smarter than me. And I thought, boy, is that the wrong way to think about this? A few years ago, this technology was unusable. Now it's barely passing. It is not that hard to project where we are going in the not distant future. A matter of months later, GPT-4 and MedPalm-2 emerge, and they can handily pass these exams better than your average doctor would. And this chart is already out of date. MedGemini, now GPT-01 just came out like a week ago, are literally off the charts on some of these scales. Then again, what is this? Multiple choice questions? Nobody's job is to answer multiple choice questions all day. We have to deal with much more complex, open-ended reasoning in the confines of medicine. We raced to get this study done last year. We took the actual exam we gave Stanford medical students. Very complex clinical vignette, and it's not multiple choice. It's describe this case in 200 words, give a differential diagnosis, explain your reasoning, and we have a very rich and nuanced way to score such answers. And surprisingly found GPT 3.5 out of the box. That's the score distribution, and it's basically showing it was just barely able to pass exam just by itself. That was surprising enough, and we could barely turn our head and like, hey, well, holy smokes, GPT-4, we had to redo the entire study because now it is not even close. It can handily pass the exam, not even close. Just for reference, in the red here, that would be Stanford medical students. Everybody passes, it's okay, it's okay. But consider this. This is a test we give our real students to screen them to see if they have enough knowledge to be ready to see real patients. What is the point of this test now? What does it even mean when a fully automated, publicly available chatbot can handily pass this exam and outscores our average medical student by a couple points? Then again, as amazing, you'll keep seeing more and more of these studies. AI does this, AI does that. Wow, seems so cool, very impressive, but also irrelevant. Because nobody's going to let a robot take care of a patient. Yet. The more relevant question is what happens when you give a human access to these tools? Does it actually make a difference in what they do? We completed a randomized control trial. Complex clinical cases, yes. Tough diagnostic cases. Nuanced grading. It's not simple multiple choice. Much more nuanced reasoning evaluation. And then we randomized half of live doctors in these cases. This is our score distribution. And feel free to look up anything on the internet, right? Because that's a realistic scenario. Just don't use any of these new large language model chatbot AI systems. And they can perform pretty well. It's a very tough benchmark to beat. We randomized the other half of doctors. We gave them GPT-4, and surprisingly, didn't make that much difference. Which is really weird, because if you just ask GPT-4 by itself, it actually outscores all of the doctors, including the doctors who had access to GPT-4. Like, what's going on? This is not what we expected, because this really flies in the face of the fundamental theorem of informatics. Human plus computer, when combined, will deliver better results than either alone. I don't know, this human in the loop in the middle sure seems to be just slowing the computer down, like just let the robot take over already. Is that what this means? It's not what this means. That's not what this means. What this means is we clearly need to really retrain an entire workforce to understand how to effectively use these tools so we can best get the potential out of them. Even with such results, I've had many colleagues counter and say, well, okay, fine. Computer's very smart, knows a lot of stuff. Hey, I have the human touch. You can't simulate the kind of empathy and personal connection that only I can provide my patients. So there's actually been some fun studies in the past couple of years showing the surprising level of empathy of doctors versus robot-generated text, but we'll isolate a very specific story. This is a very brief 2-page essay. You're going to find this in a Stanford Medicine magazine you'll have available tonight, where early on I got a hold of one of these chatbots and I challenged it with some very tough scenarios, ethical dilemmas. There's no way it can handle this situation, inspired by real cases. I saw a patient with worsening dementia, choking on his own food, has pneumonia. The other doctor scheduled him for a permanent feeding tube into his stomach. I had to talk to the wife to talk through what was going on and what to expect. After that tough conversation, I went to the chatbot. I said, chatbot, you pretend to be the doctor counseling me, and I'm going to pretend to be the patient's wife. I want to see how you would have handled that conversation. And I hit it with all of the most challenging, most fraught, emotional, dramatic statements that any reasonable family member would bring up, that indeed were brought up. Look, doctor, I don't know. I mean, I don't think this is how my husband would have wanted to live, but if we don't do this, he's just going to starve to death. I mean, what choice is there? He never gave up on me. How could I give up on him? Everyone would blame me if I don't do everything I could to save his life. Read the essay for the full dialogue, and the summary point of it is, as I was trying to do this exchange, after a few turns, I realized, holy smokes, this chatbot is starting to provide better counseling than I did in real life. After I got past that existential angst. It took me an evening or two. It did get me to think optimistically, though. There's actually something very compelling here. This very weird human-computer interaction I was having, what it was actually letting me do was to practice a high-stakes conversation in a low-stakes environment. And strangely, the computer was helping let me practice and train and be better at the most human skills we do need in medicine, communicating with our patients and their families. Warner Slack famously once riffed off Arthur C. Clarke. He said, any doctor that could be replaced by a computer should be replaced by a computer. Many people misinterpret this and think we're advocating for replacing humans. That's the exact opposite of what this quote means. Any good human you cannot replace with a computer. We provide a very different and distinct value that cannot be replaced. Having said that, my colleague Kurt Langlois might say, well, AI is not going to replace anybody. Those who learn how to use it may very well replace those who do not. With that in mind, I'm very glad to be at a place like Stanford where we can be advancing this cutting-edge technology, creating the underlying systems, but also where we can redefine how we train and retrain entire generations of the healthcare workforce so that we can safely and effectively integrate intelligent systems to actually reach all of the patients for healthcare that we need. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening.
Hello, I'm Sylvia Plavritis, and I am so delighted to be with you. Today I'm going to talk to you about AI-enabled research that has helped us understand one of the most life-threatening aspects of cancer, metastasis. Here's a simplified view of metastasis. What we know is that cancer cells detach from the primary tumor and travel and colonize regional lymph nodes and distant organs, shown here as the lung and the liver. And we think that the lymph nodes play a really passive role in the process, that they're bystanders, that they're just a litmus test to tell us if the metastatic process has been activated. But with AI research, we have come to realize that they are actually actively involved in the metastatic process. They may actually be the master orchestrators of metastasis, making us rethink ways to maybe reprogram those lymph nodes to shut down metastasis. So how did we get to this kind of thinking? We generated research data, deep molecular research data on those lymph nodes, the paired primary tumor, the metastatic sites, and we analyzed that research data with clinical data. Now, prior to some of these recent advances in AI, we would go into the clinical record and pull specific things in the clinical record that we thought would really help us understand our research data. But now, with the advances in AI, we can feed all of the clinical data into our AI systems and have the AI help us understand associations that we would have never even conceptualized between the clinical data and our research data. So we are creating AI-enabled platforms called data lakes that take all of our data, our electronic health record data, which has our lab tests, our treatments, our vitals in it, the images from radiology and pathology and those notes, the molecular data that was ordered to tell us if there's a specific oncogenic mutation driving that tumor that would sort of force us to think about a specific treatment. All of that data is now being established into this data lake that's AI-ready and AI-enabled across the hundreds of thousands of patients, cancer patients we've seen at Stanford. So with that data lake, we can really think about all aspects of cancer care, from prevention to early detection to diagnosis, treatment, surveillance. and the management of advanced metastatic disease. And across this whole care, we have Stanford researchers coming up with new ways to improve the patient's experience at each point along this cancer care continuum, trying to prevent that cancer. And if the cancer is established, trying to control it, eradicate it. And there are research data being generated at each one of these points. And right now, a lot of this data is analyzed kind of in a silo within that particular point in the cancer care continuum. But now that we have access to this AI-enabled data lake, we can actually look at any point in the cancer care continuum with that research data and bring in all the data before and really look at all the data after that point of care and really try to understand that value of the new information. So let's think about some of the hardest cases, the patients that have metastatic cancer that fall out of the guidelines, and we have to figure out what is the best we can do. For those cases, specialists who have worked with those patients convene at a meeting called Tumor Board. And these specialists talk about their experience with the patient, their understanding of the particular patient. So we have medical, surgical, radiation oncologists, pathologists, radiologists, genetic counselors, nurses, social workers, all convening, sharing their thoughts, deliberating to come to a consensus on what to do. But behind all these specialists is data. AI can integrate all the data behind those specialists. In fact, data integration is AI's sweet spot. So we are building an AI-assisted tumor board that automates the integration of the multimodal data in our data lake. Through that integration, we're designing a multimodal foundation model that at Tumor Board can be prompted to answer questions. Can you help us predict what is the next clinical event? Can you find similar patients in the medical record? While this patient is unique, across all these axes of this data, have we seen this before? What have we done for those patients? What were the outcomes? Can you help us think about what's the optimal treatment strategy? Can you help us match this patient to a clinical trial? So this type of output is enabled by what we call a multimodal foundation model. And building such a multimodal foundation model is hard, but we're doing it. And we've already seen the power of a multimodal foundation model. You saw it at the beginning of Jonathan's presentation. That video that Jonathan showed you was a result of a multimodal model. It was trained on data of images, audio, text. And it created that movie of Jonathan. In the same way, we want to ingest all of this data, this time course data, across the continuum of care, and really understand the dynamic, continuous nature of this disease, the underlying metastatic process, the patient experience, creating almost a movie. So how do we do this? We have all this data. We experience it in such different ways, text, pictures. We have to put all this data into AI language. An AI language is called a feature vector. And there's something called an AI autoencoder to create those feature vectors. And once we have all our data in AI language, we can further train AI models to figure out what part of this data is actually the most relevant part of the data in a specific clinical question. So we can put all the data in, we can put some of the data in, and through this process, we can figure out if our research data was actually really valuable in making better predictions. And maybe even what part of our research data was valuable in making better predictions. So let me try to explain this to you in the context of my research. So this is an image of a lymph node with metastatic cells from a head and neck malignancy. At the beginning, I told you, I study metastasis, and I focus on those lymph nodes. An untrained eye may not be able to see the cancer cells in this image, but I will show them to you in the next image. This image is called an H&E image, where H is a hematoxylin stain that stains nuclei, and E stands for the ozone stain, which stains cellular structures. This H&E image is a workhorse of clinical pathology. We are now releasing the power of AI to analyze images because we know AI will see things in this image the pathologist has never seen, despite looking at it for decades and annotating it. So we're not giving AI algorithms only the H&E image. We are taking that same tissue, and thanks to revolutions in biotech, we have new tools that we can stain that image with more colors. I'm showing you 4 colors here. These colors are resolved at the level of a single cell. The yellow cells are the cancer cells. I told you I would show them to you. The red cells are the vasculature, the light blue are the immune, and the dark blue are the stromal cells. What's one thing you notice? This tumor is not just cancer cells. There's a lot of other cells. We call that the microenvironment. And with AI, we're really beginning to understand what the role of those cells are in sustaining that tumor and how to target them therapeutically. We are at a point now where we are not only imaging, like this image that I showed you, I'm showing you 4 colors. I can actually show it to you in 60 colors. Because and those 60 colors are 60 different proteins. And in fact, I can show you this image in 5,000 colors. Because we have technology now that can measure 5,000 genes at a single cell. So think about that for a second. We have 100,000 cells. We can get 5,000 markers. That's like 5 billion points of data just for this one slice of one tumor. We want to analyze a whole tumor. We want to analyze hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of the tumors. We need AI. So we have been analyzing this very big data on many sets of tumors with AI tools that we've been developing and training. And we've learned some very interesting things. First of all, the AI algorithms are telling us that these tumors have structure in them. And in fact, there's about 8 ecosystems, where an ecosystem is defined as a collection of cell types in a very specific pattern. And this particular specimen has 3 major ecosystems. One that's enhanced in yellow by tumor malignant cells, one in green that's enriched with immune cells, and one in orange that's enriched with stromal cells. And now we combine this data with the clinical data. And what do we learn? We learned that tumors that have orange ecosystems between the yellow and the green, those patients do worse. In fact, the more orange cells there are, the worse the outcomes. And interestingly, as we study this, it almost appears that those orange cells are almost providing a fortress around the cancer cell so the immune cells can't get in. So we're thinking how we're going to break that down. With this data, we can actually resolve all the cells that are in there and likely how they're communicating and thinking therapeutically how we can break that fortress and eradicate this tumor. So, in summary, AI is helping us move forward on 2 major fronts. One is advancing clinical decision support, because now we're ingesting all the data, making decisions across the clinical care continuum, and to demonstrate this, I talked about an AI-assisted tumor board. The second front is advancing our understanding of human tumor biology in the clinical context. Because we have so much research data, and we can now connect it with our clinical data. This is powerful. And I showed you a demonstration of this with the work we're doing with the lymph nodes to understand metastasis. So where are we? We are together in an incredibly exciting time. We are within our reach, our advances in precision health that we could never have imagined. And within our reach is a possibility to really win this war on cancer by winning one battle at a time, by understanding that tumor microenvironment and all the molecular mechanisms associated with metastatic progression. Thank you so much for your attention.
Good evening, everyone. I've been researching depression for nearly 2 decades. I've been a pioneer of precision medicine in psychiatry. I call it precision mental health. I led several of the first international studies to use brain measures to personalize treatments for depression. And those trials empowered my journey to my current position as the Vincent V.C. Wu Professor of Psychiatry and Behavioral Sciences. Several years ago, my commitment to precision mental health became deeply personal. My partner suffered from depression for many years. When the pain became too great, he took his own life. He was a physician, but he felt too stigmatized to seek treatment. He feared that having depression on his record would jeopardize his career. That experience has fueled my increasing sense of urgency for new solutions. In my research, many people reach out to me with experiences similar to those of my partner. One of those people is Jane. She reached out when she was losing hope. If I was following standard practice, I would not have tests to offer Jane. I would observe her symptoms. I would arrive at a diagnosis of depression that is a kind of one-size-fits-all. I wouldn't know what treatment would work for her. Likely, we'd cycle through different treatments over months or even years. But if Jane was a cardiology patient, I could offer her tests, MRIs, EKGs, and I would narrow down her diagnosis and treatment. I share with you tonight the hope we are creating through bringing tests into precision mental health. I have developed the Stanford ET-Series brain imaging technology. It brings together measures of the brain with machine learning to identify specific subtypes of depression. They are called biotypes, and 6 of them are shown here. We combine these in a way that enables us to move from the one-size-fits-all approach to a more personalized approach, matching individual treatments to each person's biotype. This technology relies on measuring 6 circuits of the human brain. They're like superhighways. Let's look at them. 3 of them are measured when the brain is at rest. The default mode in blue helps us reflect on our internal thoughts, our memories, and our past. The salient circuit in green detects significance, like internal states of pain or changes in the environment. The yellow attention circuit maintains our attention and our focus. I then measure 3 additional circuits when the brain is responding to tasks. The negative affect circuit in orange responds to sadness and fear. The positive affect circuit in purple, also known as the reward circuit, responds to immediate rewards like food or longer-term rewards like social connection and our sense of purpose. The red cognitive control circuit is our brain's executive. It navigates our environment and enables us to suppress distractions. These circuits are measured in a way similar to cardiology. In cardiology, we use MRI to measure the heart at rest and during stress tasks. It enables us to narrow down on the root cause of a broad symptom like chest pain. Now, with my technology, we can do something similar for psychiatry. We can image the brain at rest and during tasks and narrow down to the root cause in the biotype underlying a broad symptom like emotional pain in depression. Now that we have this technology, I could offer it to Jane. She came in and we scanned her brain with functional MRI. We create a kind of movie of the brain at rest and during tasks. With those data, we measure the 6 brain circuits and we pinpoint Jane's specific biotype. From these data, we generate a personalized precision mental health report. Let's have a look at Jane's report. In her report, we look from left to right. On the left, we see that the structure of her brain is intact, the anatomy. In the middle panels are her brain circuits. She had a score of only 1.6 on that red cognitive control circuit. That tells us she meets our criteria for the cognitive control biotype. We're looking for something around 5, not too high and not too low. In Jane's case, she also had very low cognitive scores and severe cognitive symptoms and overall depression. Let's zoom in on her scores. That score of 1.6 was present across each individual brain region, making up this cognitive control biotype. And what I know from my research is that this cognitive biotype of depression does not respond to standard antidepressants. It also has a 4-fold higher risk of suicide. So we need a different solution. For Jane, we chose a targeted medication called guanfacine. Guanfacine targets this brain circuit. We treated Jane for 7 weeks and saw a remarkable improvement. Her scores restored into the healthy range. Now, with this technology, we are making it available to many more people through our precision mental health trials. The results are remarkable. Let's remind ourselves of what we're comparing to. In the one-size-fits-all approach, you or your loved one would, on average, take 7 years to find the right depression treatment. No testing, no biotypes. Even after that long time, which is like waiting for stage 4 cancer, the response rate is only 33%. With my biotype technology, we're changing this situation. With biotypes, we can reduce that time to just 7 weeks. And in doing so, we increased the response rate by more than double, over 70%. Now, with this breakthrough, we have the opportunity to save thousands of lives. We are adding AI that enables us to expand to many more biotypes and match them to many more treatments. Here at Stanford, we are in the ideal position to rapidly accelerate this game-changing technology. We are poised to be the flagship destination center for precision mental health. Welcome to the revolution in precision mental health. Thank you.
I just want to make sure after Jonathan's video that I'm not a deep fake, so I'm real, I'm here, it's great to see. Isn't this exciting? I have to tell you, wow. I won't ask for a raise of hands, so I won't do the academic thing, but how many people are excited? I think based on the applause, that was pretty good. But also, how many people does this scare just a little bit, just get a little bit anxious? I hope after what you see today, that anxiousness can go away. This is exciting technology, and I can tell you, at Stanford, we are so well positioned to be able to really extrapolate and leverage, as Lloyd talked about, the amazing benefits of this technology. This is an exciting time to think about what's happening. Now, we have data. And I think as we think about our large language models, machine learning, and all the things that we can do, this is really what enables this. But AI is still just an enabler. It still takes the human input to be able to have that prompt. So think about that as we think about how this technology really has an amazing thing. I would say if there's any place where this discovery can take place, Stanford is uniquely positioned to be able to do that, and I get so excited about that. Now, as you hear about the really leading edge momentum that has been gained, is we also think about what we're doing here at Stanford. I have to tell you, in our clinical environment, we have over 30 AI applications that are actually running, that are enabling our physicians to be able to care for patients. At the same time, and I'll give you a quick example of also, we hope, relieving some of the stress that our faculty are going through. We sometimes have a little bit of that administrivia, and how do we use this technology to get through some of those pieces? But as Lloyd also talked about, we also want to do that responsibly. We have an onus to our patients to be able to make sure that we're leveraging that technology in the right place. So, how are we using it here at the hospital? Let me give you a couple of quick examples. One thing that I get really excited about is how do we take the information from the patients that were treated before the patients that are coming in and use that data to leverage giving better patient care. We actually have a professor, scientist here at Stanford who developed this next product. In fact, he's with us. It's a product that actually allows us to leverage the data that we have to help our clinicians enable them to give better care. Imagine a physician being able to use previous technology and data that says, here's what happened when we applied this treatment to this patient, and oh, by the way, here's the outcomes when you're in fact treating the patient in your office to be able to get a consult. Great product came out of here called Atropos Health that allows us to literally be able to treat and use those outcomes to inform that physician as they're developing the treatment plan for that patient. Isn't that exciting to use the data that we have to be able to better enable that piece? At the same time, how do we use that data to be real-time access? another faculty member here tonight, actually developed an algorithm that allows you, as you come into the emergency department, literally within 10 minutes, through this algorithm, through the data that's collected, to be able to determine whether you're at higher risk of heart attack and actually order an EKG before you even see the physician to better enable them with the right data to diagnose you. Think about that and what that actually has the ability to be able to do and saving those critical minutes, sometimes needed. I also want to look at is we look at that administrative burden, and I know none of the faculty in the room tonight would ever say they have administrative burden. I know that's a far-fetched idea. Oh, wait a minute, you're laughing. That's probably then not true. We have actually had a remarkable ability to be able to take our technology and enable and free up our providers from some of the things that they're doing. And we're excited to actually partner with big tech to do this. In fact, we have partnered with, Nuance Communication, that is actually a Microsoft product that actually has created an ambient voice listening that's actually live during your clinic session when you're meeting with your provider, to record what's being said both across the patient and the provider and be able to summarize that for the physician so that they don't spend the end of their day actually having to type all of that up. Don't worry, it's not kept long term, so you don't have to worry about that listening piece there. But think about how this technology, now take that same knowledge and apply it to be able to actually help the care plans, help some of the things that you've seen here today that even Jonathan shared. It's amazing to see what this has. This has huge potential for our patients, huge potential for what we can apply to it and being able to further the work that we're doing. But I want to make sure that you know many of these initiatives, many of these hospital programs are supported because of the generosity of our friends here in the room. We know that this work cannot be done without that ability, and I want to say and give a very heartfelt thank you to the amazing support that comes through that allows us to do the kind of work that you're seeing here today. It's amazing to see that. Now, one more thing we want to share with you, because I'm sure you didn't get enough of AI tonight. There's more to be said. And at some point, there's going to appear behind me an amazing ability to say, what more can I do to learn? We actually have a session that's coming out called AI in Bloom. It's coming out in November. You will each receive a personal invitation to these sessions that will allow you to see even more some of the opportunity to actually the great work and some of the great and wonderful things that are coming out of that. Now, I want to invite you next out to the foyer. We've got individuals ready to showcase and show you to your table. I also want to challenge you, though, because you're going to have either an amazing scientist or medical researcher or a physician there at the table to engage with in a great discussion. So I want to challenge you to challenge the discussions at your table, get involved in that. Thank you for joining us this evening. Have a great evening.
The preceding program is copyrighted by the Board of Trustees of the Leland Stanford Junior University. Please visit us at med.stanford.edu.